Yeah, we're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech. More specifically, this is humane architecture. Okay, and it's at 10 o'clock block on a given Wednesday. And we're going to talk about Primitiva 3, which is a student project organized by Martin Despang in Germany for the School of Architecture, involving a certain kind of really super duper creative project. And we have George Casen, a follower of the show. And also, you know, a guy with many talents. I'm not going to go into that because we don't have time for that. Suffice to say that George is going to give us a running narrative of the what do you want to call it, the introductory presentation, and then George and I will have a little Q&A afterward. George, welcome to the show. All yours.
Thank you kindly. This is an introduction to Proletarian People Power Primitiva 3 Treeitecture. The top is a list of our collaborative creators, our team members, and our coaches, educated coaches. Then I'll get into the basic introduction. Our unique climate in Hawaii behooves us to an approach that represents the sustainable simplicity inherent in nature and the self-sustaining way of life that was practiced by native Hawaiians before Western contact. In our contemporary, tropical, modernist, post-contact Gestalt worldview, we continue the same indigenous methodology of achieving the essential necessity of shade and shelter, yet with dignity and decency for everyone in need. Open for this with the least possible effort for today's tropical urban metropolis of Honolulu. Stay tuned as we now showcase our Primitiva 3 design, where the concepts initiated in Primitiva 1 and 2 are further developed. Here we see typical hermetically sealed high-rises in the top left, top right, some that pretend to be nature sensitive, and bottom, the latest planned hermetically sealed buildings at the site of Ward Warehouse. Here are some improvements in design for our tropical climate. Top left, Killingworth's Harbor Square. Top right, Killingworth's Kahala Condos. Bottom left, Yamasaki's 1350 Ala Moana Boulevard. 4, Ala Moana, and in the bottom right, Ala Moana building. Okay. In the top left, we have architect Alfred Yee, who passed away recently, unfortunately, reviewing Primitiva 1 with Martin Despang. The top right, Coach Larry Medlin, working on a Frei Otto design. Bottom left, Conrad Rowland, some of his design approaches. He lived in Hawaii on the Big Island in his last years. Bottom right, Larry Medlin discussing his inspirations from working with Frei Otto and his design iterations. At the left, we have award-winning architect Frei Otto, 1925 to 2015, with his tensile structures. Top right, the office of Frei Otto in Germany, where our coach Larry Medlin worked with him. Bottom right, this was the Frei Otto tensile structures were inspired by the natural tensile nature of a bubble. That's how Frei Otto looked at bubbles and then realized that there's a natural tensile nature to them, and he used that for his inspiration. Top left, Frei Otto's open to nature designs. And in the top right, Frei Otto's Tiergarten apartments open to nature in Berlin, Germany. And on the bottom, why not live like being at the beach where Hawaii residents spend their weekends? Okay, here we have our team members doing a prototype modeling, and on the left is the core, and on the right is the ramp zone showing them in progress of putting together the prototype. Okay, this is from the left, we have the core area, then the dwelling area, then a green zone with vegetation, and a wet zone with a water trough. So that's basically from inside the tower out to the facade or whatever. Yeah. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. This is paradise. Basically, you have the green zone in the front, vegetation, and then you have a water trough, and then a potential water wall as well. So a view of from the dwelling area that the inhabitants would have as they're looking out. Okay, this is basically showing as the tower narrows from the bottom to the top, as it ramps up, the tower narrows. Frei Otto's mantra, do the most with the least. So what we're doing here, we're using indigenous basalt cables and rebar in lieu of steel, because basalt is indigenous to Hawaii. Then we have ETFE polymer, a non-corrosive, translucent, and light material for the wet and green zones. And then on the bottom, a diagrid mesh for strategic strength between the cables and for tight weave mesh flooring, and I'll get into that a little more. This is the completed prototypical model that our team members put together. And then it shows on the left, the model itself, the prototype, and then on the right, showing some of the zones. This is showing the mesh floors and the zones, another view, another perspective. Here's a view from the top down of our organism, our prototype, our Primativa 3 tower. This is a view from the top down. Next slide, please. Cooling techniques. 3 cooling techniques: a water trough and water wall for evaporative cooling. Next, vegetation shields the sun. And then 3, open mesh for air circulation. And here's a young gentleman enjoying a free, easy existence without mortgage, without any kind of bills. He's enjoying his existence in the tower, in the Primativa 3. Here's a continuous ramp from ground to the top. There's no individual floors. It's just one ramp that goes all the way up, plus the floors. Okay. This is a choice inhabitants want. The nakedness in the tower, and all the tower's naked and the people are naked. Okay, the top left, there was a movement in Italy, architects, that spread to the world called Super Studio. It was in the 1970s. And it was all getting back to nature. So then here we have on the bottom, here we have our inhabitants in the tower enjoying back to nature in this paradise existence in nature up on top floors. Okay, and then on the right side, the Hawaiian climate is easy breezy. Native Hawaiians used minimal clothing to conform with the climate. Our tower also conforms to the climate. It's like a naked open tower. It conforms to the climate. Our inhabitants will live like a nomadic lifestyle with backpacks. And that's at the top left. And at the top right, we have in the core, we would have safe rooms in terms of in emergency hurricane situations, and also lockers for their backpacks when they want to put them away for a while. Okay, and on the bottom, we have individual solar energy collectors, as you can see, for cell phones, laptops, tablets, or if on overcast days, they can tap into the core power receptacles that are going to be available for when there's no sun on overcast days. Native Hawaiians use natural kukui nut oil for night lighting, but a Hawaiian practitioner who I'm familiar with advised that there's too much black smoke, so we chose to use solar-powered lanterns for lighting instead. We have a sun and wind-charged tower. Top right, we have translucent photovoltaic mesh over the extend mesh. We have wind turbines in the green zone. And top right, outlets to batteries in the core. And the bottom, big bottom, we show a perspective of the electrical batteries, and then to the receptacles that the inhabitants will be using. Here are Honolulu residents normally displaying territorialization on the weekends at the beach. So we are doing the same thing, a beach-like existence in the tower at all levels. So we have cocooning. There's cocooning during the day so that they can have their territorialization in the tower, just like they would do on the weekends at the beach. So they're enjoying this. This is during the day. Okay, and here we have individual night lighting, that we have our lanterns, solar-powered lanterns, and inside each cocoon. And then on the right, nighttime glow. The tower will glow at night from afar, which will be beautiful at night, and the nighttime view of Honolulu. Here we have a green ring filled with perlite in lieu of soil. And the toilets are only vegetation shielded pukas or holes in the ground in the green zone, with human waste piped in a concealed gravity flow channel through reclamation systems on the ground floor. What a natural existence here. We have our waterfall shower, where this gentleman is enjoying himself in the tower, a natural being, as if he was at a waterfall, Manoa Falls or wherever. Okay, here we have, in the tower, we will have vegetable and fruit growing for the inhabitants, for the use of the inhabitants. You can see all on the bottom, the different aquaponics. Okay, here we have, at the left, we have ADA access in the core through a lift. This is mainly for handicapped people and for emergency situations. And at the right, hydroelectric generating turbines in the side chambers of the water trough. And then we have photovoltaic mesh on the face of the tower and wind turbines in the green zone. 3 ways of getting additional power to our Primitiva tower. Here, these are children playing and picking fruit with special shoes. They're wearing special Croc shoes for the mesh, for the tight weaved mesh floors. For emergency egress, as I mentioned, there was the lift. There's also an option for a interior slide that our coach David Rockwood suggested as well, and then also escaping in gravity flow water, in the gravity flow water trough on rafts or boogie boards. That's another option for those who can do it, who have the ability. Mini ramps over the water trough to panic barred openings in the tower face. Then take their rope from their backpack, push away, and climb down down the mesh in emergency situations. This is another alternative egress option. We will have 3 gravity flow channels from the water that's pumped up to the top. One will be our water trough, gravity flow, then a sealed for hand and face washing, sealed channel, and a third one sealed for human waste, which will go to gray water, black water, human waste reclamation systems on the ground floor. And on the bottom, we show the water storage cisterns that we will be using to store water. This is the lower floors of the tower and the surrounding landscaping that we were the Primitiva 3 tower. We will have an open design in case of water rise situations, and it will result in minimal damage. The design of this building will result in minimal damage in this kind of a flooding situation. When there's hurricane issues, right? Top left, there are broken windows from the force of the hurricane winds in traditional hermetically sealed buildings. But our tower, for maximum hurricane wind resilience, just like sailors who lower their sails during a storm to prevent the sails being, destroyed. Our Primitiva tower also is very resilient. And in the core is round, so it maximizes the ability of the wind to wrap around. We were looking at two different versions, two iterations for our tower. And this was the more traditional Joan version, which was not chosen. It was named for musician Joan Baez, who was only moderately progressive in the 1960s. But what we did is we chose the Janis version. And the Janis version was named for provocative rock musician Janis Joplin, who called our inspirational coach, Larry Medlin, up on the stage in the 1960s. And she said something which I'll mention at the end. This is a view of Primitiva 3 Tower on the site adjacent to the Frank Fossey office tower downtown. These are different showing different places that the tower could be built. Here's a view of a group of towers on the Jefferson Elementary School site toward right near Diamond Head. The top, we show that there's numerous climate zones in Hawaii. So we're planning to put these towers in different locations with different climates. And on the bottom, you'll see an iteration of the tower in another climate zone at Fort DeRussy Park. This is a view at the site of Steve Au's Ward Warehouse instead of the invasive planned Victoria Place. This is another view at the Ward Plaza site in another iteration of our Primitiva 3 tower. In the top left, you'll see Peter C's exotic design, which was used as one of the inspirations for us. And at the bottom, we'll show a view of the tower at a Kaka'ako site. And then, of course, you've seen the natural on the bottom left. And then there's a upholstery shop that Martin is likes. At that site is where this tower is going to be in Kaka'ako. Okay. Hawaii residents and visitors will see a unique habitation unlike any other high-rise building in Honolulu. As hermetically sealed invasive high-rises over time are ruined, Honolulu will be rewilded with primitivas sprouting everywhere. This is the concluding statement. Our investigation resulted in a gestalt that we feel is a natural organic habitation for human beings that is suited for the unique climate of Hawaii. Our creation displays the easy, breezy nature of life here, as opposed to the hermetically sealed buildings geared to colder climates. In lieu of the sealed nature of traditional buildings, we are utilizing lush vegetation to shield the inhabitants from excessive sun and rain and for purposes of individual privacy. Basic human needs are satisfied in a humane and uplifting manner. Post-fossil energy sources such as solar, hydroelectric power, wind turbines, and biomass will be utilized. Our gestalt process commenced with a perusal of suggestive designs from inspiring coaches, followed by a selection of schematics detailing each team member's design visions. After initial first steps with locally sourced cross-nail timber and concrete horizontal floors, suspended by tensile tentacles, we felt that this version was too traditional. It was the Joan version that I showed, named after Joan Baez. We then went for a more courageous yet balanced one, that fine line of poetry and pragmatism as a Janis version. In memory of rock rebel Janis Joplin, who slapped our coach, Architekt Emeritus Professor at University of Arizona, Larry Medlin, on his ass, encouraging him, "You've got to move it, man." That was in the late 60s. Thank you. That's the end of my formal presentation.
Okay, George, it's you and me now. That was quite a presentation. We've seen that before, and this is the first time it's been broadcast. And it's the first time it's been broadcast with Q&A to follow. So let me ask you a couple of questions. What do you think of the aesthetic here? What do you think of the design of this project?
I think this is a very I'm into sustainability big time as a planner, environmental analyst. I was an environmental analyst for many, many years. It in every way, this tower uses what for Frei Otto's mantra of the most with the least. You will be able to get, like the initial Queen Emma Gardens was a place that all people from all different walks of life, different economic strata, different ethnic, racial background, were all living together in Queen Emma Towers. That's the way it was initially designed. This tower will also be socially equitable because it will allow people from different walks of life and different economic strata to live there, to inhabit it, including tourists or whatever. So that's basically it. Very sustainable building, very attractive, open to the natural elements. Yeah.
Okay, let's turn to more practical considerations. What about the engineering? Is this valid engineering? Has it been tested against an engineer? Will it work?
Well, I believe that our specialists did consult with some people in the engineering department at UH. And I know that our mentor and our coach, Larry Medlin and David Rockwood and Martin Despang all were involved with the process. So I believe that since David Rockwood is also very much into engineering, he did feel that this is feasible. It would have to be tweaked possibly, but it is structurally, it is very feasible. And we are going to be using diagrid X10 mesh to strengthen between the cables on this tensile structure. So of course those mesh over time may break down, so we have to keep on top of it. But so I believe that this is a feasible structure structurally. Yes.
Okay, what about the people side? I mean, you talked about people living together almost in a state of nature, and that is only a certain subset of the population in general who would do that or tolerate it.
Yeah.
But what about the considerations of creature comfort, for example? I didn't see any televisions. I didn't see any stereos. I didn't see any ovens. I didn't see any appliances at all. So what if I want to have a beer in the middle of the night? For some people, that's very important. They're not going to camp out for the rest of their lives. How do you deal with the social, and quality of life experience here?
Well, we were talking about individualization. So I have had a mini TV in years past, tiny little TV that you can charge up, and you can have your television individually in your cocoon. So that, other than the cell phone and the tablet and that kind of thing, laptop, you can have a little TV as well. Now in the core locker area, there will be, hopefully we can look into little refrigerators where people can keep their food on ice, beer or wine if they want to do that. I'm a naturopath kind of person where I'm raw food vegan, so I only eat pretty much vegetables and fruits and beans and whatever. But there are options to add refrigerators and the like. But it's basically going to be each person is going to have their own individualization of TV and whatever. Yeah.
Okay. On to the what do you want to call it? The community collaboration with this, the practicality of it. I mean, there are a lot of questions that come to mind because this is, it's a theoretical project. It's a very super creative project, and it's certainly by definition different than the way we live now. That's for sure. So to get from here to there, what has to happen? What has to happen in terms of community acceptance, of regulatory acceptance, like planning and permitting and approval of toilets that aren't toilets and the like, approval of the project by the neighbors. We're alone to NIMBY, and some of the locations that you've identified may not work for the purposes of the neighborhood acceptance. What has to happen before a project like this can be built here in Hawaii?
Well, our coach, Martin, has had collaboration with top people at the Department of Planning and Permitting. And there are some progressive people there at the top that are open. Also, Socrates Brakatos, who works with fire standards with the city or the state, and he's also open. So basically, from the permitting aspect, there are people who are more progressive that have an open mind. Now, with the public, we have to, we're in it. We have global warming, right? We live on an island in the middle of the Pacific. We have to all pull together and think of ways that we can make this island sustainable. Rapa Nui, they didn't act sustainably, and the whole existence, the ecology went down the tubes, and there was no longer they couldn't sustain life anymore. So you've got those big, huge statues, but no life. So we've got to look long range. So we've got to train the public. I mean, I am in my 70s. I have been eating vegetables and I have not had any meat or eggs or dairy for 42 years. I'm still here in my 70s. I don't dye my hair. It's a very healthful lifestyle. I'm going to train the public to be more sensitive, And yes, there can be individual cooking. You can have your little, if you want to cook, which probably from my perspective, it just ruins the nutrition. So, but the thing is, I eat everything raw, just the way the spirits or God placed on this earth. But you can have little cooking facilities, I have little burners, that I can use when I'm out camping or whatever. So there are options, but the basic thing is train the public. Get the general public to realize that this is what's going to keep their children and grandchildren sustainable on this island.
Yeah. By the way, George, I also do not dye my hair.
Well, I was telling Martin, I'm very into genetics and all around the world. And I really believe that men who lose their hair, it's the next stage in genetic development, because just like Frei Otto says, do more with less, there really isn't a need for hair anymore. I mean, because we pretty much live inside,
Yeah, we can replace that with ball caps and the like. Let me go to my last question,
okay,
George, and that we don't have any more time, but let me ask you this. There's always a financial aspect to any project. This project is going to cost some money. It's a first of its kind of project. It's going to cost a little testing here and there, a little trial and error, a little tuning and whatnot. And then it's going to cause people to move in and to participate. So what is the business model? What is contemplated either, well, both in funding the construction of this project and in having the inhabitants pay or own or pay and own for their right to be there?
Well, we're not envisioning the inhabitants to have to pay. Of course, they will have to keep up, their area clean and whatever. But in terms of funding, there are some progressive foundations on this island that we can tap into, try to get them to see if they'll give money. There's also federal funding for innovative projects that we could look for funding. So this would be like a prototype initially. That would be the type of funding we would do. And of course, we would have to get the okay from, like you said, planning and permitting and whatever. But and then if this thing succeeds and people, like it, then other iterations could be done. So initially, it would be like a prototype, a testing project, and that's where we would do initially, and we would get funding from these different sources, pretty much federal and private foundation forces. There are many progressive people living on this island who have the means to help us.
Well, I hope they see your presentation.
Okay.
I hope they examine the project and the ideas, all those ideas, and I hope they watch this to see the discussion between you and me.
Okay.
And we'll have further discussion about this, George. George Casen, a student at the UH School of Architecture, UH Manoa, but with a background in planning and municipal planning, I guess, who can speak to these issues. And thank you to Martin Despang for setting this up, and for all his students, all the hard work they put into creating the slides and building the model and thinking it through. Thank you so much, George. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, all of you. Aloha.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. Aloha.